wanted to get your perspective on it because we've talked about it quite a bit within our office. And I want to see what you think and kind of enlighten the world on what this really means.
First of all, if you ever wondered if what's said in the news is true or not, all you have to do is be on the receiving end of something like this, and you're like, "What?" You have
Yeah,
the national news putting out antitrust statements themselves as headlines.
our
Um,
president saying
our-
that that
yeah,
was on us.
everybody can thank the current administration that house prices are going to somehow go down. So you let me know how that works.
Right.
But yeah, so to me, this whole thing is really a money grab.
Mm.
It's unfortunate, and in hindsight, everybody will be able to look back and see that. But these attorneys are going to walk away with 150 million dollars, and the people supposedly who were hurt by this will walk away with 12 bucks. And in the meantime, what's going to happen is there's going to be less transparency, and it's going to make it harder on first-time home buyers, our military home buyers, because they kind of get moved around a lot,
Mhm.
right? Which is very unfortunate that to say they say things like the 6% is going away. Well, first of all, that's not even a thing. There's agents that charge everything from I don't know, $300. I'll stick you in the MLS to 7, 8, 9, 10%, depending on what it is in the land. You know, I, it, there's a market for everybody. If you get an attorney, you can get an attorney for $150 an hour or $400 an hour, $800 an hour. You don't have to hire any of them. You can go represent yourself. And it's the same thing in real estate. There is no gate that requires that, like, you can't buy a house unless you go through the realtor gate. That's not a thing either. You can go it alone, and some people do.
So how did this kind of happen? When you look at it, and anybody who reads the listing agreement, it talks about this in there. Like say a person was to ask for 6%, and they say 3% is for us, and then we give the other 3% to the buyer's brokerage. How did it get to a point where people think that the seller themselves was paying the buyer's agent directly?
Well, can I start that at a different point?
Yeah.
Um, the way it currently works, and I'll speak of the Northeast Florida market. I'm not aware of all the forms in every state and what every single you know brokerage across the nation is doing, but I would say in Florida, and specifically Northeast Florida, when a seller hires me, then my conversation has been, my fee for this level of service is X. And one of the things I do with my fee is I use a portion of my fee to incentivize the other 12,000 agents in this market, because what's important is that you sell your house and you get the terms and a price that you feel good with. Not so important that I'm the one that does it. I would like to be the one that does it. We call that
Right.
a birthday in our industry because they say birth, happens once a year. So they're not as common. So I want to start with that. Secondly, that in our forms, it's transparent to the seller. This is what the fee is, and this is how much we're cooperating with. That wasn't hidden. Thirdly, in our market, we syndicate cooperation to the online portals. So any consumer could have been on Zillow and see exactly what the compensation was going to be to a buyer's agent on that property.
Mhm.
Now, and that where does that data come from? Well, it's syndicated through the MLS. So by an agent putting what the co-op is in the MLS, it is then therefore syndicated to the public. And now the DOJ and this lawsuit have decided it is in the consumer's best interest to not do that anymore.
So now nobody knows.
So now nobody knows. Nobody knows, right?
So so this idea of transparency is now made the whole thing opaque. You can't see through it at all. You don't know what's going to happen.
No, and I don't want to be disrespectful to our industry, but this is human nature. I bet if you talk to attorneys, they're like the true Intuit, knowledgeable, full time, overtime, more time that they've invested in it, and then the other people that are breathing their air,
Mm,
right? They like aren't really trying, right?
right.
So hairdressers, I don't care. Everything in real estate, it's the same way. We have people that maybe aren't doing it full time. They're not constantly doing whatever, Maybe they have other jobs. Well, now as an agent, we have to call every single agent to determine if there is any compensation at all. If there is, how much is it? Then we, get that in writing, because now we're required to have a buyer's agreement in place with the buyer
Mhm.
prior to showing property. That's going to explain now what the buyer will be paying. And the Wall Street Journal put out a ridiculous example of this. I'm going to use a little hyperbole and go from 1.8 million to 2 million because it just sounds a little whatever. So $2 million house. And this guy, this seller is going on about how much money he saved not paying a buyer's agent. He had 20 offers. I'm going to promise you right now, he did not have 20 $2 million buyers that were representing themselves.
Right.
Like,
Right.
how does that play out with the first time home buyer?
Mm.
Does the first time home buyer have that income to be able to do that? And and how can they, they can't just right now finance that into their loan.
Right.
Now, they could get a contribution. The seller could, pay that cost, pay for the attorney's fees. I mean, the realtor fees. But they can't just say, well, I just want to finance it. It really, really hurts the entry level buyer. And some people have said, well, buyers are like, well, I'm just going to go to the listing agent. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. So you're going to go online, you're going to figure out who the brokerage is, figure out who the agent is, get their number, call them, and set up a showing at a specific time with them on that property that they are then, as far as I know right in this moment, we're required to have a buyer's agreement signed before showing a property.
Right.
So what does that look like for the consumer? For the agents, if I could, I don't want to jump ahead of you, but
No, go ahead. I did want to mention one thing though. Uh, the scenario in which a buyer goes directly to the listing agent, what's different about it now, at least to me, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, what's different about it now versus what it was before this ruling was if you're a buyer that went to a listing agent at that point, yeah, you may be able to work out a deal because one agent is handling both sides of it and the seller is the one that's paying the listing brokerage. Now, the best analogy I can think of, it's me being a baseball player and being in arbitration and then hiring, let's say, hiring the Marlins lawyer to also represent me when dealing with the Marlins. It just does, it seems it doesn't. I don't know of a person, when you look at the psychology of it, would feel comfortable doing something like that.
Well, I totally hear what you're saying. I also think that the way it's packaged now, the consumer's thinking lots of things. One, they think everybody charged the same amount. They didn't.
Hmm.
Everybody has their own value proposition. You have, when you want to go shopping right now, you can go to Walmart or you can go to Nordstrom's or anywhere in between.
Hmm.
Right? There's all different kinds of consumers, all different kinds of goals. So all those options are out there. But for that entry level buyer, that they've got them thinking, okay, not only is commissions are somehow going way down, which I think is not going to be the case at all. I think
No.
it's going to backfire. Um, but that now in signing a buyer's agreement, these agents have or consumers, buyers have a mindset like, oh, I'm going to bypass it then and just go to the listing agent. But the listing agent's going to have you sign something. And so now you're assuming the listing agent's working for free for you.
Right. Right.
Or you've
You're paying
decided
them.
to go in unrepresented. I mean, I don't think anybody wants that either, especially first time home buyers. Those of us in Geddis, you're one of them, way up there, that care about the people.
Right.
Sometimes you've had to say, you know what, maybe you shouldn't be buying right now. Maybe this isn't a good time, or maybe it's not the time to sell. This idea that we're all just a bunch of, whatever sharks, it's totally not true. And the consumer has to take some responsibility for that.
Yeah.
How did you pick your agent? Because they were your neighbor's kid who got their license last week? How did you decide who's going to help you buy the house? Like when you go to the furniture store, you walk into the furniture store and you're like, pop, the next salesperson like, oh, they got me. Now I'm stuck with this person. You
Yeah.
know, is that how you found the person who helped you buy a house? Did you interview anybody? Did you know what you were looking for? Did you I mean, you can find out anything you want on the internet anymore, you know, true or not true, but you can find a lot of information
Right.
and come up with what do I need to know as a buyer's agent? And I would say as a listing agent, I know when people have done that homework
Mm.
because I can tell they've done it because they'll ask me questions. Well, do you have 3 references of people you've sold houses to or sold their houses in the last 90
Right.
days? They didn't make that up. They read, you know, I'm fine with that. That's cool.
Yeah. That makes me happy. You did your work. So yeah,
You did
let's
your
do it.
work. Yeah.
Make me
Yeah.
earn my check. I love earning my check. Let's do it.
Yeah. So I just think that there's a misconception out there of what this is actually going to um, look like